Start down there with Shane.
Shane Stack, MDT.
Eric Dixon, proxy for Brent O'Connor.
Mike Haynes for the city.
Corey Aldridge, Missoula Urban Transportation District.
Raymond Delaney, Mr. TMA.
Sarah Cofield, Health Department.
Lisa Moisey, Parks, Trails, Open Lands for Missoula County, and I'm proxying today for Donna Gockler.
Karen Hughes, Community and Planning Service, and proxy for Dory Brownlow.
Ben Weiss, City Bicycle Pedestrian Office.
Okay.
Proxy for Lynn Kelly-Garden.
Oh. And then Helena folks, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Vicki Cernich, MDT Planning. Ken Winiger.
Who do we have in the audience back there?
Jeff Logan, staff representative.
Okay. All right, great. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes. If everybody's had a chance to look at the minutes, I'll seek a motion.
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a first. It's been, and we have a second. Okay, any discussion on the item? If there's none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now is our time for public comment. Do we have any public comment? We do not. So we'll move on to new business. Adoption of safety performance measures and targets. Take it away.
Good morning, Jessica Morris, City Transportation Planning Manager. I have a bit of a cold, so excuse me for my voice cracking a little bit this morning. So last month, we presented to you some information about the federal safety performance measures that the MPO has to adopt, and we have since then presented that same information to TPCC, and we also had a meeting, our quarterly meeting with our Transportation Safety Advisory Committee yesterday to go over this information. And so today we are seeking for TTAC to recommend adoption of the safety performance measures and targets. So I won't go through the entire presentation that we did last month, but as a reminder, we have the responsibility to, by February 28th, so we're actually ahead of the game here, to either to establish our targets by either adopting and agreeing with MDT's statewide targets and agreeing to plan and program projects that contribute towards the accomplishment of the statewide targets, or developed and adopt our own for the metropolitan planning area. As a reminder, we have 5 performance measures that we have to calculate, and those include the fatalities, the fatality rates per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, incapacitating injuries and incapacitating injury rates per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and then the non-motorized fatal and incapacitating injuries combined. And the rates involve projection of VMT. When we presented the information to TPCC, we had some conversation with them about the trend lines that we were using and why we chose certain trend lines over others, and they requested us to, when we came back, to present what the different trend line options looked like and why we chose maybe a 5-year versus a 10-year. Because depending on the trend line that you choose, it changes your projections and it therefore changes your targets. So, and all of this is done in, these calculations that we've done are consistent with what MDT has done for their statewide targets. And if we were to adopt these projections as our targets, this is what we would be adopting. So for fatalities, what we propose is to use a 10-year trend line, so looking back at 10 years of fatality data. And the red numbers here, the red bars here, would be the projections of fatalities based on a 10-year trend line out to 2020. The green line is the 5-year rolling average of the fatalities. So what we would be adopting would be, for 2020, a 5-year rolling average of 5.084 fatalities.
I think it's the 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
3.5.
That's 3.5.
fatalities. If we were to use a different trend line, for example, a 5-year trend line, you can see that our trend would actually be going up, which we don't feel is an appropriate thing to do, is to adopt a trend that's going up. That's why we've chosen a 10-year trend line for this particular performance measure. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this presentation. Feel free to stop me at any time, or I'll stop myself.
So on there it says we have two, under a 10-year time frame it's 3.5, and under a 5-year it's 65? Is that right? Or is that 6.5?
No, it would be 8.4.
Okay.
So when you use 10 years of historical data, your trend line, you see a downward trend in fatalities. And so these projections from 2017 to 2020 are based on that 10-year trend line. So you would project that you would have 3.5 fatalities occurring in 2020. If you only look at the last 5 years of data, where our numbers are much smaller, there's actually an upward trend in that data. And so you would project that you'd have 8.4 fatalities in 2020, which we would rather not project a higher number. So looking at 10 years of data in this particular performance measure appears to be more appropriate.
So Corey's referring to the text. It says 65 in the text, so I think that's just a typo, right?
That's for, and we haven't hit the incapacitating injuries yet. We're just on fatalities.
Okay. Well, I saw you used a 10-year time frame for fatal, and then you used a 5-year time frame for incapacitating.
Exactly.
You can
That's
explain why
correct.
you're using it? Okay.
Yeah, and
That's
I'll
what we're
show
running
you.
through.
All right.
And so it goes back and forth between that, depending on the historical data. So for incapacitating injuries, we've chosen to use a 5-year trend line in this case. And it's kind of for the same reason, although both trend lines are both going downward. You can see when you go to 10 years, the difference, you can see how much lower your 2020 projection would be. You would have 16 incapacitating injuries, as opposed to using a 5-year trend line, you'd have 65. So in an effort to be reasonable, I guess, in choosing a more reasonable and attainable number, in this case, based on the historic data, 5-year trend line seems to be more appropriate for this performance measure. Now, keep in mind that this exercise that we're going through is well, it's what we would ultimately use internally for our goals. When we update our community transportation safety plan in the next year or so, we would use this same methodology, and we would have our own regional goals. At this point in time, what we're looking at is adopting and supporting the states, but we wanted to show you guys what ours would be if we did officially adopt them in our own region. Any questions on that? So, moving on to non-motorized. So keep in mind the federal performance measures requirement is to combine both bicycle and pedestrian crashes together into one number, and to combine the number of fatalities and incapacitating injuries for bicyclists and pedestrians into one number. So in this case, we wouldn't have a rate, and I'll get to the rates in a minute. In this case, we've used a 7-year trend line, and similar reasons, although looking at a 10-year is not substantially different, but a 7-year trend line seemed to be a more appropriate fit for the data. Excuse me, just went ahead. So we would be looking at a combined non-motorized fatality and incapacitating injury for bicyclists and pedestrians of 9.0 in 2020 under a 7-year trend line versus 8.12 under a 10-year trend line.
I think that 7-year slide right there is an old one.
Is it?
Yeah, because it's not going to match up with the table. So the 7-year 2020 number is 11.6 instead of 10.8.
I apologize for that. Is it? Okay. So we also have the rates that we have to do for fatalities and incapacitating injuries. And so the rate is the number divided by 100 million vehicle miles traveled. So this chart shows our projected VMT in 100 million vehicle miles traveled. So 2016, we have 7.27 million vehicle miles traveled, and we project that by 2020, that will go up to 7.58. So as Dave was saying earlier to me, it's about every 2 months, we have 100 million vehicle miles traveled in our region, generally speaking, 2.5 months. So these charts show essentially the fatalities divided by the 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and that is your rate of fatalities. So we would be projecting to 2020 that we would have 0.671 fatalities. Is that wrong?
Well,
did I have the wrong one?
So this is where it gets kind of tricky, because the fatal and incapacitating injuries, those total numbers are total numbers. When we get to the rates, we start using this 5-year rolling average target. So instead of them being absolute numbers, then we start using the numbers from the green line. So it would be 0.182.
Oh. And then for incapacitating injury rate, it's the same general calculation. So we'd have, I guess in this case, we'd be adopting a 9.566 number of incapacitating injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled in 2020. All of that is to say that, well, firstly, here's a summary table. The top table is MPO targets, if we were to adopt them, and then these are the MDT ones. There's a couple of differences. MDT, when they adopted theirs, they're using, since they did it earlier than us, their data started back in 2013. Ours starts in 2016. They, at a statewide level, there's more fatalities and more serious incapacitating injuries. So their totals here are larger. And so the percentage reductions are larger than what we have. And so what we're recommending, despite all of the graphs and charts we just showed you, is to just adopt what MDT has adopted and agree to support those measures, and rather than us adopting our own. Although, like I said, when we do the CTSP update, the Community Transportation Safety Plan update, we would go through this process again, and we'd likely have our own internal targets adopted.
So the MDT numbers are statewide, they're not for this region?
Correct.
They're just for the state overall?
Correct, yeah. And so essentially what we would be saying is we support MDT's statewide targets. We will do what we can in our power to, to choose projects, build projects that reduce, that help them meet their targets for the reduction in fatalities and incapacitating injuries.
Since the state's serious injury rate is significantly lower than ours, does our target actually support theirs?
Well, I think, anything that we can do to decrease ours will help them decrease theirs. I think that we have a higher, I probably will misspeak here, but I'm guessing that ours are higher because of the nature of the crashes that occur here, that we have a higher rate of serious injuries than they do, likely because, well, actually, I don't know. Can you help answer that question?
Well, one better way to look at it is looking at the annual reduction for the serious injury rate. Our annual reduction is actually higher than theirs. Ours is reducing it by 0.83 and theirs is reducing it by 0.37. So yes, it does support in short. But again, we kind of covered this yesterday at TSAC, is their targets are based on billions of vehicle miles traveled, whereas we have 670 million vehicle miles traveled in a year. So we're looking at drastically different numbers, both higher injuries in particular, and then a much higher VMT. So their numbers are going to be different, but that annual reduction is a little bit more telling than just looking at the overall rate number.
Any other questions, comments? I have a question. So what is the advantage of adopting MDTs versus doing our own? Or is there? Is it just kind of?
There's not really, it's kind of neutral. The one advantage is that we don't have an extra layer of reporting, but even that's not a significant, that extra layer of reporting wouldn't be significant. We track this stuff anyways. We've been tracking crash data through the Community Transportation Safety Plan since it was adopted in 2013. The federal regulations have a couple more measures that we have to do, and we would do that anyways. If we adopted our own, then we would be reporting our progress to MDT for them to report to FHWA. But it's just one small extra step. There's no repercussion if we adopted our own and we didn't meet it. We wouldn't have any financial repercussion at the MPO level. The state, if they don't meet their targets multiple years in a row and so on, then they would have some financial repercussions, but we would not. And
so we'll continue to track what we're doing within our region, though, individually, or?
Yes.
Yes.
And we'll be doing that through the Community Transportation Safety Plan. And we have these goals, and as far as the safety plan goes, we established a 25% reduction. It goes into on the big sheet, there's a CTSP versus performance measure. And we started out saying we want to reduce fatal and incapacitating crashes within the urbanized area by 25% by 2018. And we have blown that target away. I mean, we're well below that on both fatal and incapacitating. So I don't see any reason why we're not going to surpass whatever targets we're setting now. Hopefully we hit them. But historically we have exceeded it, and the CTSP uses that 5-year rolling average instead of absolute numbers. So that's what we're going to be looking at in the CTSP.
And so you're seeking a motion to recommend TPCC adopt the targets for each safety performance measure by MDT.
Correct.
All right. So I will, if there's no other, you have a question?
Yeah, just with this motion, are you looking for us to specify the 10-year for fatals, 5-year for incapacitating, 7-year for non-motorized?
No, we're just asking, so everything we just showed you was what you would adopt if we were to adopt our own. If you choose to just adopt and support MDTs, then we're supporting theirs.
None of these graphs matter if we're supporting MDT?
Correct. All of that is just to show you guys what ours would be if we were to adopt our own.
Oh, okay. That was not made clear at TSAC yesterday.
Well, TSAC, the methodology for arriving at these graphs was approved. So internally, we can use these charts and these numbers and the methods to produce the safety plan. They were also shown to support that we are actually contributing to the overall reduction in numbers that MDT has targeted. So we're not necessarily, we went after the methodology yesterday, but what we need to do is adopt and support the MDT targets.
So do we know what those numbers are?
Yeah, it was on that last sheet right there.
I didn't put all of their graphs in because it's just it gets very much more confusing than it already is. But essentially theirs are a larger version of ours.
And they will be updated annually.
Yeah.
We have to go through this and assess our status every year. So it's mainly, this is how we're doing it. Are we comfortable with it? Yes, we're comfortable with it. It does support MDT. Let's support their targets, and we're going to track our own progress through the safety plan.
That's a good summary.
Okay. Seeking a motion on this?
Yeah, I'll make the recommended motion. I mean, it just seems to me that we're going to continue to locally make decisions that try to improve these numbers and improve these statistics. So it's kind of a bit of a theoretical exercise, it seems to me, but I'll make that motion. Just seems to make sense.
Okay, so we've got a motion from Mike. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second from Ben. Any other discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that recommended motion passes. All right, any old business? I don't see any on here. Okay, Any announcements or closing comments from anyone? Shane?
Do a brief update on some projects in the area, just for your information and anybody else listening. Russell Street, that project has been let. I mentioned that to this group before. Construction will probably start in the spring. We do have utility relocations going on, so should expect to see potentially traffic control and things like that out there as utilities are relocated. But as of right now, the contractor's plan is to start this spring. So that's where that project is at. It probably will be a 2-year project. So you'll see the bridge construction, half of it done this summer, demo in the fall, winter of the existing structure while traffic is on half the new bridge, and then they'll build that second half over that next summer. So be 2 summers of construction for Russell Street. Frenchtown Frontage Road, not a lot of that is in the MPO specifically, but it is a project in the area. That project begins at the Huson interchange and heads east to Highway 93. It's a complete reconstruct of that secondary highway. That starts this spring as well. That's going to be all of this summer and potentially, I don't know if we'll go into that next construction season. I think the plan is to get it all built this coming summer. So. I-90 in Frenchtown, we had half built this summer. The other half will be built next summer. So that you'll see that under construction here this spring as well, starting back up. 2 new projects, Van Buren Interchange will be installing the roundabouts this summer. So that project is going to be let on February 22nd, or at least that's the plan. Everything is ready to go on that, so it should stay on schedule. Again, that starts this spring, should be completed by the fall of 2018, so just this one summer. We do have an ADA upgrade and kind of in the downtown area, and it's really designed to upgrade the corners where they don't meet ADA standards today. That work will happen on Orange and Stevens, Broadway, 5th, 6th, Higgins, and I'm probably missing a few streets here and there, but for the most part it's downtown roadways. And it's just the corners, unless there's something very egregious in the middle of on the sidewalk between those ramps. It'll just be focused on the corners. It's a design build project. That project is scheduled to be awarded this December, so I will know more in January who the team is that's going to do the work, but that work will start this spring. One other project, Bonner Bridges, the I-90 Bonner Bridges over the Blackfoot River. We have a design build team working on that as well. I don't believe we have awarded that. That's going to be awarded in December, but the plan with that one as well is to do a replacement demo first of one of the bridges, and then replacement this summer, and then we'll switch traffic over for this next winter. We'll be on two structures, and then in the following spring, we'll demo the second bridge and replace the second bridge that following summer. So that's a 2-season project as well. Piers will be taken out of the Blackfoot, bridges will be lengthened, so it's going to look a little different. I think it's going to look a lot better too. We'll probably do some stream work to widen the stream out. As narrow as it is today, it'll be a little bit wider. So pre-construction work, the Higgins Bridge, you'll probably start seeing a few stakeholder meetings, and then we'll roll into some public meetings probably this spring and summer, get some design detailed on that, and then that will be let for construction in 2020, but we'll be doing quite a bit of public involvement and public outreach this spring and summer. So those are some updates on some of the larger projects that we have here in the community. So if there are any questions.
Will the Frenchtown Frontage Road project include a shared use pathway?
Yes, from Huson all the way to Highway 93. That one, because of the timing, made it through the shared use path policy and the HESRA policy. So,
okay,
yeah.
Thanks.
I have a couple. So We are going to do in January a combo TTAC TPCC meeting on the TPCC date, so that'll be January 16th. And the reason that we wanted to combine the two, because we're going to have two presentations that I think everybody would be interested in. One is we'll have a presentation from the airport on their expansion plans, and then the other is a presentation from HDR on the Brook Street project that the Midtown group has been working on. So that will be January 16th, so we will cancel your normal TTAC meeting and get it on your calendar for the 16th.
What was the other one there?
TPCC, the Transportation Policy Coordinating Committee. And we'll also be bringing forward a TIP amendment and an amendment to the Unified Planning Work Program in January as well.
Okay. Anyone else? No? We have nothing else, then we will be adjourned for the rest of the year.